Welcome back to everybody. Police shootings, dog attacks, and high energy bills. We talked about these topics in the last half hour and how they're affecting San Antonio. And now we're going to get answers from the city's top leader, Mayor Ron Nirenberg.
He joins us now for the KSAT Q&A on the move once again here this evening. Mayor, thanks for being here. I want to first ask you about what, by our count now, is 5 San Antonio police officers shot in the last 12 days. We're waiting to get more information about what happened this afternoon on the southwest side. But in that time, there's been a lot of back and forth between the Bexar County DA, the city's police chief, about their coordination on these cases. Are you a part of any of these conversations about what is leading to some of these violent offenders still being out on the streets?
Sure, yes, and thank you for having me on. And so first, I do have to say this is a stark reminder of the circumstances and the challenges of being in law enforcement, and should serve as a reminder to this community that the folks that are doing this job are facing some of the most extraordinary circumstances and deserve our support. The second thing I would like to say is that it is completely unacceptable that violent offenders are continuing to perpetrate violence on our community and on members of law enforcement. So here's the challenge. It is a very complex situation. The city does not have control of the jail or the court system. We do have control over the resources that we provide to law enforcement. We're going to continue to provide support to SAPD to make sure they have the personnel and the equipment necessary to protect themselves and protect the public. I have spoken with Judge Sakai, and we both believe that this is not something that any of us should find acceptable. We will be convening all of the folks involved in every aspect of this, criminal justice and law enforcement, to make sure that we are identifying the processes that need to change to ensure that, again, violent offenders are not continuing to perpetrate violence on our community or on members of law enforcement.
You mentioned earlier today questions regarding how bonds are set, and that you were hopeful maybe that would be addressed at the state level. What are you hoping that lawmakers could do to make corrections there?
So, there are myriad issues involved in ensuring, number one, that folks get due process, but also that we have the most violent offenders who need to be behind bars staying there. And certainly the conversations about bail and bail reform have come up, started and stopped at the state level. I believe that's one of the areas that needs to continue to be addressed. But there's a lot of other things that we should be looking at. Folks who are, not everyone who is arrested ought to be treated the same in terms of their propensity to offend again. And so, perhaps we need to look at how the probation process works and whether some of the offenders who are out on parole need a little bit more attention, for instance, than others. So I think we need to get everybody involved. There are multiple levels of government involved in this. It's not all solely the responsibility of any one. It does go to the state level. It goes through all of the agencies here locally. And we need to make sure, the judge and I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect our public and to protect members of law enforcement.
You just mentioned protection. Unfortunately, we just had another dog attack today. We know a 46-year-old man is in critical condition now in the hospital after he was attacked by his neighbor's 2 dogs. We have spoken about this many times here on the KSAT Q&A about these dog attacks that have happened. We've had a rash of them this year. A lot of the heat has been on animal care services, but what can be done at this point? Or do you think that the onus really is on pet owners?
Well, again, there are multiple levels of responsibility here. And one that we are taking very seriously at the city is ensuring that we have enough resources to address dangerous dogs in our community, dangerous animals in our community. And so we have increased the animal care budget this year by 26%. It's waiting for council approval. I expect that will happen. But there's a whole host of things we need to do to make sure that owners of pets are being responsible pet owners. We've seen a number of attacks recently where the owner has ignored warnings from neighbors or has not spayed or neutered their pet, and so we're contributing to the pet population, overpopulation. There are strays that are simply just let go. So there's a number of things we have to do. First and foremost, to protect the public, we've got to make sure that ACS officers are fully staffed, able to respond to calls, and making sure that we have the resources necessary to take care of dangerous animals so they don't pose a threat to the public. I will say there's also responsibility here at the state, and very thankful that members of our own Bexar County delegation have filed pieces of legislation to make it easier for us to detain and remove dangerous dogs from owners. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed one of those important bills, but there's lots of areas of responsibility here. We're going to do what we can with our responsibility to make sure that ACS is properly resourced. There's going to be additional council conversations over the next couple of weeks before we approve the budget. I expect additional resources for spay and neuter to come up. So there's a lot of things that we need to be doing to address this issue.
Okay. So that budget vote is happening next week, and we talked a little bit earlier in the show about Councilwoman Melissa Cabello-Haverda's idea that she plans to discuss tomorrow, we understand, about the city basically taking less revenue from CPS Energy in an effort to try to prevent a rate increase, at least one, that the utility has planned. Is that something that's actually feasible for the city to do?
Well, so I would say that certainly interested in having a conversation about how we can be good stewards of resources. But CPS Energy is owned and operated is owned by the public, remains one of the most affordable utilities in the state. And if we don't ensure that they have proper revenue support to do the infrastructure upgrades that is necessary, then we're going to find ourselves in a serious challenge. I mean, this is underinvestment in utility infrastructure is why California is in such a world of hurt with regard to their electric utilities, electric and gas utilities. So CPS Energy is on good footing. If it were as simple as reducing the amount of revenue that is dividend back to the city as part of CPS's agreement with the city, we're going to have to find ways to reduce the city's budget on services that everyone expects. The initial calculation I understand from the city manager in terms of the revenue impact of going to 3% or dropping 3% in that share to the city would be the equivalent of about $90 million out of the city's budget this year, and then compounding that every year going forward. So it will be a challenge. Look, nobody likes to see rates adjusted, but costs rise, and we've got to adjust for that to ensure that the CPS Energy utility, which we all depend on, is performing adequately to keep the lights on and keep things moving in San Antonio.
Okay. Mayor Ron Nirenberg, thank you so much for joining us today. We know that you're on the go, so we appreciate you speaking with us today for our KSAT Q&A.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Six more defendants have pleaded not guilty in the Georgia election interference case, including former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. Meadows and those other 5 defendants have waived their arraignments. Meadows is charged with violating Georgia's RICO law and soliciting a public official to violate their oath. He and his legal team are still trying to move his case from state to federal court. All 19 defendants charged in this investigation have pleaded not guilty.
Attorneys for convicted killer and former South Carolina attorney Alec Murdaugh say that their client deserves a new trial. So now his attorneys want a new trial because they say the trial's court clerk betrayed her oath of office for money and fame. They're accusing the Colleton County Clerk of Court, Rebecca Hill, of pressuring jurors to come to a quick verdict and having private conversations with the jury, 4%. Now, Hill also traveled to New York City with 3 of those jurors after the trial ended for interviews. Murdaugh has been in prison since March after he was found guilty in the 2021 shooting deaths of his wife and son.
Look outside with live cam. We're still keeping our eyes peeled, looking for any relief from this heat and, more importantly, some rain, Adam.
Oh, man, I know. Rain is what we really need. And there is a little shift in our weather pattern that gives us hope for some rain in the extended forecast. Until then, it's more triple digits and more of the same. Right now, hey, speaking of triple digits, 100. By 9 o'clock, 92. Midnight, we're at 84. And then tomorrow morning around sunrise, 79 degrees and no chance of rain at that point. But I'll be back in a little bit to talk about that pattern shift and the latest on those rain chances in just a bit.
You know, we're at the point in the year where any little change, anything we could talk about in the forecast that's different
Is a little exciting.
is a good thing. Yeah.
Especially if it involves rain.
We celebrate it, don't we? We do. We celebrate
Something.
any little shift, yes, and any little change, especially as it can signify a change in season as the patterns continue to modify and progress, and we see those changes. Now, typically we don't have our first real noticeable cold front until mid to late September, and right now that's still not in the works. So more triple-digit days ahead. Then we have that pattern shift. Not just by next week, but even Sunday we'll see that little shift, and that gives us a shot at rain. I was going to put an exclamation point next to that, but I don't want to get too excited yet because we're just not quite there yet. Take a look at the numbers. 20% chance Sunday and Monday, 30% on Tuesday. And don't get me started on how I think exclamation points are overused these days. That's a soapbox for another day. And I know, Myra, you have questions. I think you already know. But anyway, back to topic here. So 20 to 30% chance. But keep in mind, we'll probably be fine-tuning and tweaking these numbers in the days ahead. And there's a chance we could be raising the odds one of those days, particularly on Tuesday. Here's the pattern right now, and actually just north of us in Texas, a few showers and storms have been on the radar screen and just fired off this afternoon between San Angelo and Oklahoma City there. So it's nice to see something developing. It's just not in our neck of the woods. The upper level high still influencing our weather significantly, but it's going to push westward again by Sunday, and that gives us this northerly flow aloft, which can benefit us if we get showers and storms developing in New Mexico or even northern Mexico. We can get the leftovers of those. Also, little disturbances embedded within the upper level flow can help kickstart the action. And notice the rainfall potential. This is just a generalized look at the rainfall potential over the next 7 days. But by Sunday into next week, we actually have some of that potential here, the darker green indicating a higher potential. And it returns to parts of central and even south central Texas. So glimmer of hope, cross your fingers. 100 right now, dew point is 61, southeast wind at 9. That's going to be picking up. That's going to really boost those dew points after sunset. It gets sticky. Dew points, dewies in the mid 70s later on tonight. Right now, 99 Uvalde, a break from 100. LaGrange at 98 degrees. And most of the state's still at triple digits. There is some cooler air out there, though. And I mentioned this earlier. Look at the 60s and 70s farther to the north and even west. And that's where you have some of the cooler temperatures that are starting to be seen as we get into September. 7 a.m. tomorrow, 79 degrees. That's where we'll start the day with some low clouds early. Then by noon, nothing but sunshine, 91 at the noon hour. By 4 or 5 p.m., we hit 102. Southeasterly wind, pretty light tomorrow at 5 to 10 miles per hour. But the temperature map's going to look very similar. Low 100s for most of us. Upper 90s for a good portion of the hill country. Even Bernie 98, Leon Springs 99 for the high temperature. It's Sunday through Tuesday we're really focusing on, but I also want to point out there, Wednesday through Saturday, we are forecasting to tie or break record highs.
Still?
I know.
He's still, I know.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. We'll be right back after this.
In the buzz today, she is cute, she is rare, and now she has a name. Meet Kipiki, the only known spotless giraffe in the world.
So her name means unique in Swahili. Bright Zoo in Limestone, Tennessee says that almost 40,000 people voted to help name the 5-week-old. Zoo director David Bright says that some guests told the staff that they like the name Kipiki because it's easy for kids to say.
I can see that.
Kipiki.
Yeah,
Kipiki.
I can
Yeah,
see
it's
that.
cute. So how many chicken wings do you think you could eat in 12 minutes if we timed you?
Not that many.
No, probably 12, maybe, if I'm really rushing it. But for James Webb, the number's more like 276. Yeah, The Australian ate his way to a new world record at the U.S. Buffalo Wing Eating Championship on Sunday.
Okay, so this is why maybe this brings up some memories, right? His competition included hot dog eating champion Joey Chestnut. He was there. The twice reigning champion Mickey Sudo. Webb averaged eating 23 wings per minute.
How?
I don't know. Joey Chestnut, he's the 4th of July hot dog eating contest legend. He came in second place with 240 chicken wings.
But they're hot. That's the thing. That's what makes it different. I'm like, it's one thing just to eat it, but like these are hot
Well,
wings.
you can't dip these in water. Like
Yeah,
the
look at
hot
their
dog
faces. It doesn't look
do.
good, by the way.
The first anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's death is just days away. She died in Scotland on September 8th, 2022, and a new commemorative coin honoring the late Queen is now on display.
Yeah, the East India Company unveiled the coin yesterday. This is more than 9.5 inches across, so it's actually wider than a basketball. The coin was dubbed the Crown. It's made from almost 8 pounds of gold and features more than 6,400 diamonds. And if you want to know how much it's worth, $23 million.
It's a lot more than I was thinking of when we said coin.
Yeah, just think about that. Yeah.
We'll be right back. We just got some new information into the KSAT newsroom on a suspect accused of shooting another San Antonio police officer this afternoon. That suspect has been taken into custody. This happened near Iroquois and Ute Street in the southwest side around 4 o'clock today.
Just a few hours ago, Chief William McManus actually tweeted out that the suspect is a repeat offender and, quote, should have been in jail. He went on to say that this is a public safety issue. We're being told that officer now in the hospital. No word right now on his condition. But again, SAPD, they say they have arrested the suspect. We're going to have the latest on this shooting tonight on the Night Beat. We'll see you then.